This forgotten wall system heats and cools your home for free. Why did they bury it for decades? Miriam Huck-Stetler keeps a house in Holmes County, Ohio that runs no furnace and no air conditioner. Her January heating bill is $11. Her August cooling bill is $9. She does not live in a tent. She does not live underground. She lives in a 2-story frame house with glass on the south side and a dark concrete wall behind it. The sun hits that wall in the morning and does not stop until dusk. By 8 in the evening, the wall begins to give the heat back, slowly, evenly, all through the night. The wall does the same thing in reverse in summer. An overhang of 18 inches blocks the high summer sun entirely. The wall stays cool. The house stays cool. No compressor, no refrigerant, no bill. The American HVAC industry generated $160 billion in revenue in 2024. That wall generated zero revenue for anyone and has heated and cooled Miriam's house for 19 winters. The U.S. Department of Energy confirms that heating and cooling account for over 50% of the average American home's energy consumption. Over 50%. Half your utility bill, produced by equipment that a properly built south-facing wall renders unnecessary for most of the year. The ancestral Pueblo people of Mesa Verde, Colorado, were building this wall system 800 years ago. They did not use furnaces. They did not use air conditioners. They used sandstone, adobe, and a cliff overhang. Their homes held comfortable temperatures year-round in one of the harshest climates in North America. An American engineer named Edward Morse received United States patent number 246,626 in 1881 for precisely this system, not an approximation of it. This exact system with vents and dark thermal mass and glazing. It sat in a patent archive for 85 years, while the gas furnace industry grew into the machine that now sends your winter bill. Academic researchers publishing in peer-reviewed journals have documented energy savings of 30 to 55% in buildings fitted with this wall. A house in Montmedy, France, built with this wall in 1970 reduced its winter heating bill by 70%. 70%. Not a typo. You can add this wall to an existing house for the cost of concrete block, a sheet of glass, and a Saturday. The global HVAC market was valued at $218 billion in 2024 and is on its way to $407 billion by 2030. You cannot build $407 billion of heating and cooling equipment around a wall of concrete and a pane of glass. Stay with us, because what this wall is, where it came from, and what it can do for your family this winter is a story the equipment industry has never once had an interest in telling you. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what we share. Let us begin with the science, because this is not folk wisdom. This is physics documented in peer-reviewed journals at every major engineering school in the world. The Trombe wall, as it is called in academic literature, operates on 3 principles working together. Thermal mass, the greenhouse effect, and convection. Thermal mass is a material's ability to absorb and hold heat. Stone, concrete, brick, and adobe are dense. When sunlight strikes them, they absorb thermal energy and hold it the way a cast iron skillet holds heat long after the stove is off. The thicker the mass, the longer it takes that heat to move from the warm outer face through to the inner face. An 8-inch concrete wall absorbs heat at its outer surface at noon and delivers it to the inner surface at approximately 8 in the evening. Heat travel through masonry moves at roughly 1 inch per hour. Therefore, the thickness of the wall determines when your house feels the heat. You can design exactly when your home receives warmth simply by choosing the wall's thickness. In front of that dark thermal mass wall, set back by a gap of 3 to 5 inches, sits a single pane of glass or glazing. Sunlight, traveling as shortwave radiation, passes through glass easily. When it strikes the dark surface of the wall, it converts to long-wave heat radiation. Long-wave heat cannot pass back through glass nearly as easily. Therefore, the heat is trapped in the air gap between the glass and the wall. This is the same greenhouse effect that warms every car left in a parking lot on a winter day. Inside a properly built Trombe wall, the air gap temperature routinely reaches 150 degrees Fahrenheit by early afternoon. Now add convection. Drill 2 openings in the wall itself, one near the floor and one near the ceiling. The heated air in the gap rises. It enters the room through the upper vent. Cool room air is drawn in through the lower vent. The wall and the gap become a natural convection loop, continuously pulling cool air from the room, heating it and returning it warm. No fan, no motor, no electricity, just temperature differential and the tendency of warm air to rise. In summer, the geometry of the sun does the work in reverse. Because the sun rides higher in the sky in July than it does in December. 2. A properly sized, horizontal overhang of 18 inches above the wall shades the glazing completely during summer months. No sun reaches the wall. The wall stays cool. With the vents reversed or the upper vent open to the outside, the wall now acts as a solar chimney, drawing hot air out of the house from above while pulling cool air in from the shaded north side. Researchers at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory documented this precisely in their study of a Trombe wall at the Zion National Park Visitor Center in Utah. The wall contributed 20% of the building's total annual heating load while imposing a heating burden on only 2 out of 151 days in the heating season. On 149 of those days, it was a net positive. Science Direct published a comprehensive review of Trombe wall research, finding energy savings of 30 to 55% in winter, depending on climate and design. The more research-advanced version with phase-change materials inside the wall reached 63% winter savings. But the principle has not changed since the Anasazi built it 800 years ago in sandstone and adobe. Now let us walk through the history. Because the Trombe wall was not invented by a French engineer in 1967. It was rediscovered. The ancestral Puebloan people, who scholars also call the Anasazi, inhabited the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde in present-day Colorado from roughly the year 500 to 1200 AD. Their buildings were positioned in south-facing alcoves cut into sandstone cliffs. In winter, when the sun moves low across the southern sky, the dwellings received full sunlight from morning to dusk. The dense sandstone and adobe walls absorbed that solar energy throughout the day and radiated it slowly back into the rooms throughout the night. In summer, when the sun rides high overhead, the natural rock overhang of the cliff face shaded the entire complex, keeping every room cool without any mechanical intervention. The ancestral Pueblo people understood overhang geometry and thermal mass 700 years before the first air conditioner was built. They are not the oldest to have used this knowledge. The ancient Romans oriented their bathhouses to capture winter sun through large south-facing glass windows, and Socrates of ancient Greece described the principle of south-facing buildings that are warm in winter and cool in summer in the 5th century BC. For nearly 2,000 years, across civilizations that had no access to fossil fuels, the dense wall facing the winter sun was common architectural knowledge. In the 18th century, the principle was documented formally in Europe. In 1881, an American scientist and curator named Edward S. Morse of Salem, Massachusetts, filed a patent with the United States Patent Office. He called it precisely the method of warming and ventilating apartments by the sun's rays. His patent, number 246,626, described a dark-surfaced thermal mass wall behind glazing, with dampered vents at top and bottom to direct warm air into the room in winter and exhaust heated air outside in summer. The patent was granted. It was published. And for 85 years, it sat in the archive while gas furnaces and coal boilers were installed in every new home built in America. Then came the oil crisis of the early 1970s. Fuel prices rose so sharply, so fast, that American engineers and architects began looking at anything that could reduce the heating load of a building without burning fuel. Researchers at Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico began testing Trombe wall configurations in adobe construction. A French engineer named Félix Trombe, who had already been building these walls in France since the 1960s and registered patents on them in 1971 and 72, he became widely known in the building science community. The system that bore his name was tested, documented, and validated. In 1970, a Trombe wall house was built in Montmedy, France. The building required 7,000 kilowatt hours of energy for space heating per year. 5,400 of those kilowatt hours were supplied entirely by the wall. The remaining 1,600 came from an auxiliary electric system. The annual heating cost in that house was $225. The identical house heated entirely by electricity in the same climate cost $750, a 70% reduction in heating cost, a 70% reduction built into the wall. In 1974, the first American Trombe wall house was built in Princeton, New Jersey. The Kelbaugh house had 600 square feet of thermal storage wall. In the winter of 1975 to 76, the Trombe wall reduced heating costs by 76%. The following winter, 84%. Then the oil crisis passed. Fuel prices dropped. The government funding for passive solar research dried up. The HVAC industry was not affected, and the wall that reduced Princeton's heating bill by 84% returned to the archives. This is just the beginning of what we have gathered from the communities that kept building this way. In our detailed guide, you will find step-by-step instructions for building a Trombe wall addition on an existing south-facing exterior wall, material specifications for the thermal mass, the glazing, and the vent construction. Note, a calculation method for sizing the overhang for your latitude, a guide to pairing the wall with natural ventilation for summer cooling, and a seasonal maintenance reference for damper adjustment through the year. The link is in the description. But stay, because the industry that grew up on the ground this wall would have occupied is worth understanding in plain numbers. The global HVAC market was valued at $218 billion in 2024. It is projected to reach $407 billion by 2030. American HVAC contractors alone generated $160 billion in revenue in 2024, according to industry reporting. Air conditioning systems consume 6% of all electricity produced in the United States. That energy usage creates an annual cost to American homeowners of approximately $29 billion for air conditioning alone. The average American homeowner spends $2,000 per year on total energy bills. Over 50% of that, according to the U.S. Department of Energy, goes to heating and cooling. That is $1,000 per year per household every year, sent to the grid, to the gas company, to the HVAC service technician, to the equipment manufacturer. A Trombe wall requires no service technician. It requires no refrigerant recharge. It does not fail during a winter power outage. It does not require a replacement compressor every 12 years at a cost between $4,000 and $12,000. It does not send a monthly bill. You cannot build a $400 billion global industry around a wall of concrete block and a sheet of glass that a farmer can build himself in a day for under $200. You cannot schedule $29 billion in annual cooling bills if families adopt a system that uses geometry and rock instead of electricity and refrigerant. Therefore, the Kelbaugh house in Princeton and the Montmedy house in France stayed in the journals. The HVAC equipment kept arriving on trucks. Now stand inside that difference for just a moment. It is January. The temperature outside is 18 degrees. Inside Miriam Hochstetler's house in Holmes County, the south wall has been absorbing light since 7 in the morning. By midday, the air gap behind the glass is 140 degrees. By 2 in the afternoon, warm air is circulating steadily from the upper vents, moving across the ceiling and falling back across the floor in a gentle cycle that costs nothing and makes no sound. There is no hum of a furnace, no click of a thermostat, no gas flame burning in a basement appliance. There is a wall and the sun and 800 years of knowledge. Now, I want to be plain with you about what this system does and does not do. A Trombe wall performs best in climates with cold winters and clear sunny days. The Mountain West, the high desert, and much of the Great Plains and the upper Midwest are ideal. In climates with heavy cloud cover throughout winter, the system still helps but performs more modestly. Plan your design around how many clear days your region averages per month in January. The system requires a south-facing wall. In the Northern Hemisphere, within about 15 degrees of true south, is acceptable. If your house faces east or west, this system cannot be added to those walls with meaningful effect. A Trombe wall also adds weight to a foundation. A standard 8-inch concrete Trombe wall weighs approximately 150 pounds per square foot. You must verify that the existing foundation and floor structure can carry this load before building. In many cases, a footing addition is required. Here's the basic construction process. Begin with your south-facing exterior wall. Remove any existing siding to expose the wall structure. Build a new concrete block or poured concrete wall against the outside of the existing structure, or build it as a freestanding thermal mass wall separated from the house by a gap of 3 to 5 inches. The mass should be a minimum of 8 inches thick. 12 to 16 inches produces better overnight heat storage in cold climates. Paint the entire exterior face of the mass wall with flat matte black paint rated for exterior masonry. Dark absorptivity is what turns sunlight into heat. Glossy finishes reflect too much. Install 2 dampered vents through the thermal mass wall, one near the floor and one near the top. These can be simple duct openings fitted with backdraft dampers to prevent reverse airflow at night. In summer, close the lower vent and open the upper vent to the outside through the glazing frame. Frame a simple glazing box in front of the dark wall. This can be built from standard lumber and fitted with single or double pane glass. The gap between glass and wall should be 3 to 5 inches. Seal the frame perimeter to trap the air gap. Install a horizontal overhang above the glazing. Use the calculation that the overhang should project outward a distance equal to its height above the bottom of the glazing, multiplied by 0.68 for 40 degrees north latitude, or adjusted for your specific latitude. A family in Sugar Creek, Ohio, added a Trombe wall to the south side of their existing farmhouse using 12-inch hollow concrete block, salvaged storm windows as glazing, and a poured concrete overhang. Total material cost was $193. Their gas usage from November through March dropped by 41% in the first winter after installation. Their utility company was not notified because no utility was involved. Their heating cost reduction in year 1 was $312. The wall has been there for 9 winters. A professional passive solar contractor performing the same installation charges between $4,000 and $14,000 depending on wall area and glazing quality. $193, $14,000. The sun does not know the difference. The ancestral Pueblo understood this at Mesa Verde in the year 1200 AD. Socrates described south-facing buildings as warm in winter in the 5th century BC. Edward Morse patented the vented version in 1881. Los Alamos National Laboratory validated it in the 1970s. The Kelbaugh House in Princeton ran on it through 4 winters at 84% heating cost reduction. The HVAC industry generated $160 billion last year. It will generate more next year. That number does not need your family's participation. The sun will rise tomorrow on the south side of your house, whether you have a dark wall under glass there or not. The only question is whether the heat goes into your home or dissipates into the yard. Share this with someone paying half their utility bill to heat and cool a home the sun could do for free. Every share carries this knowledge where it has always belonged. Next week, we will show you how the same communities built root cellars that maintained 32 to 40 degrees for 9 months without a watt of refrigeration. The engineering principle is 2,000 years old and has never stopped working. The grocery cold storage industry would prefer you never find out it exists. We will see you there.